Meta Perspective Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to Meta Perspective Podcast. We're your hosts, Alex,
Evan,
and the girl. This is the show where we talk about deep and interesting ideas and try to get to the heart of the topic through different perspectives.
but if you are joining for the first time, please give the channel a follow. We usually do some subscriber giveaways and things like that, so stay tuned, and it doesn't hurt to stay active. Speaking of active, we do have the chat pulled up here so we can see anything you guys say and respond to if you have input for our conversation, because Meta Perspective Podcast is not meta
Without your perspective. Nailed it.
Yeah, nailed it. Tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about mental control and overriding your brain to a manual override state. So it should get an interesting discussion here. But yeah.
I'm about it.
So I guess let's start it off. So most of the time, most people, we all have the same brain in our heads. And it's designed with a certain purpose. It's supposed to keep us alive, 60,000 years ago or something. So, the things that make us tick and the way that our brain usually works is not necessarily helpful for the modern world. So, back in the day, if you were kind of acting a fool and you came into the nearest tribe and you were not socially acceptable, you'd probably be killed. So, there's a part of our brain that says don't, has the fear and doubt part of our brain is very trained, and it's designed to do a certain purpose. Well, and then in our modern world, that's not really the case anymore. The worst thing that happens, you might get punched out or something like that. So you're not going to die anymore. So those same natural instincts that keep us from getting outside of our place on a mental level, we are dealing with that internally, and oftentimes our mind is not our friend.
So kind of what you're saying is we have a lot of different aspects of ourselves to respond with reality, and that's how we survive. And we've cut off a big chunk of how we allow ourselves to respond. And as a result, since we're not afraid of death as a result of our actions as much, now it's this person's, Tommy got real into heroin. You're like, that's terrible, but we all know where that goes. It's or blah, blah, blah is he just got a new motorcycle, and we all know he's the wild card of the group. Good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
You're a risk on your own feet. Now you're on a motorcycle. So what you're kind of saying is there, basically you either become really soft because you don't use this stuff, and your mind kind of works against you, like you said, and turns in towards you. Okay, well, you're not being like this, so now we're going to adapt to this lack of threat, versus pushing through, essentially almost creating your own threats. Not in a deathly way, but in a challenging way where you still have some kind of thing to, again, if you have no fear of death or anything, then you're not really gonna, you're just gonna become lackadaisical and bunch.
Right. So it's not necessarily a fear of death, but it comes from a fear of death. So it's the idea that, you walk up to a group of people and you introduce yourself, and you kind of give them, they're going to have a perception of you immediately as soon as you walk up. What does this person want? This kind of stuff. That's part of the mental training that's happened over thousands of years, is that, this is a new person. Am I going to perceive them as a threat? So, people are already apprehensive to you approaching in the first place. But on the flip side, you yourself approaching this group, there's going to be fear and doubt in your mind about how this is going to go down. So it's going to be like, oh, this isn't going to work out. They're not going to like me. You know, and 60,000 years ago, if they didn't like you, you might be killed. So like that's the evolutionary route to this fear and doubt that people aren't able to control. And it comes, you know, like this discussion is going to span, you know, beyond that. It's like anytime you want to do something, your brain's basically not going to help you. It's going to tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't do it, why it's not going to work. You know, it's going to give you every single reason in the book to where this is going to be harmful for you. And that's not necessarily helpful because, as we established in the beginning, nothing bad is going to really happen to you. Maybe the group rejects you. Maybe, you know, someone calls you a name or something like that, but it's not going to be the end of your life. So our brains are already wired in a way that's not helping us navigate this modern world. And most people just want to break out. Most people want to do the things that they want to do and experience the life that they want. But then why can't they? Well, the answer is because they're a slave to their mental conditions and their reactive patterns. So our mind is designed to just react to stimulus. So it doesn't matter the situation, whether you're approaching the group, whether someone's approaching you, you're going to have the apprehension, you're going to have the fear and doubt creep in because, you know, not knowing the situation, it could go badly and you could die. That's kind of what I'm saying. So we're all built in with this programming pre-installed. And, you know, you can get beyond this. It just takes some mental awareness. And most people, unfortunately, are of the idea that their mind is who they are. And this kind of goes into the ego. We've had discussions about the ego before, where it's an identified self. It's a perceived self. So, like, if you do something it's not you, you know, that's your perception of it. You know, if you are going to try something where something new that's different that you never were before, maybe it's like a little bit out there, it's eye-catching. You know, you feel nervous. You feel like, how is someone going to see this trench coat that I walk in with this, like, Peaky Blinders style hat? And then you're like, you know, they're going to reject me. I'm not going to wear it. I'm going to put it in my closet, and I'll probably wear it once for Halloween. You know, it's like that kind of stuff. It holds us back, and that's just an example. But for the most part, people aren't trained to analyze their thoughts in the moment, you know, conceptualize them, decode them, and then make a decision whether that thought's helpful or not.
Or sometimes I'll even go off this and give people an example they could even start to apply and use. Because like you said, it's kind of a psyching out of, like, what it comes down to is you don't have the confidence. So why don't you have the confidence? Because let's break it down. There's reasons. I just got this trench coat. I saw this show, so I got this hat from Peaky Blinders. I really liked it. I feel like I want to capture that guy's persona, and I want to do this, but, like, I'm not confident to bring it out because I feel like people are going to judge me. The reason for that is because you're not him. And what you're trying to display to people is something you don't have. And you know that. So you're like, I don't feel like I can confidently display what I want. Okay, that's true then. Now, let's say you change your perspective of it.
Right. So,
and
what
your focus
what
of
you
it.
just said, that's what the mind's going to tell you.
Exactly. Thank you. That's exactly what's going to happen is your mind's going to tell you, I'm not that person. I can't sell it. I'll just get made fun of. And why would that scare me? Because I know I can't back up the people making fun of me. Oh, what are you just trying to look like that guy from the show? No, there's other stuff too.
I spent some time in England, like 2 weeks.
Yeah, it comes down to the foundation. If you have no foundation, part of you is inherently telling yourself this is normal stuff, how the mind works. Your brain says, hey, you know you can't back this up. If you're going to go into a social situation, you're going to be ridiculed. You know that because you would do the same thing if you saw a guy show up dressed as Pikachu, but didn't really he was like more of a Snorlax. You're like, bro, you're not even a Pikachu, bro. Like, you don't match the character. You're not selling it, man. Why did you go through all this trouble to show up here as a Snorlax dressed as a Pikachu? But that's the idea, is like, how do you rewire that? So I would say something simple as the trench coat and the hat. You know what? Let me reconnect and reconnect my emotions to this outfit, to different thoughts. So what is something I really like that has trench coats? Oh, well, detective stuff. Let's go detective. Everybody loves detectives. I'm going to the bar to try to pick up a girl in a trench coat and a Peaky Blinders hat because I like trench coats and I saw a TV show with this hat. And that's all it was. Well, if I create a new thing, well, I know plenty of women like murder mysteries, and I like detectives. So that's a good filler. That's a good common ground. So I like detectives. I'm passionate about that. That's one thing I do know is like detective work. And I love the psychology and all the stuff, breaking it down. Okay, I'll go with that. The hat, well, honestly, let's break down the show. Why do I really like the show? Because people are still like that. They just are like that in a modern post-2000 time. Why did I like Peaky Blinders? Because of the time, the era, the fashion, this. So what about it do I like? Well, it's really the time. What about the time? The simplicity, the work for your own, the bare bones with an era of like ambition. Oh, well, now I have a reason, like a feeling that motivates me, that I'm passionate about, that ties me to this fashion. So when people ask me what's up with the thing, it's like, I don't know, it reminds me of a simpler time, And that's a quick thing you say back. What's up with the trench coat? You going to go capture some kids? You're like, I thought it was more detective work because I'm here to meet a guy who's been talking to 14-year-old girls online. What's your name, by the way? Now I just turned around on you. Now I'm the guy who's Chris Hansening you.
Yeah.
Because you're the creep, buddy. There's ways if you're passionate and you're like, I'm a detective. What am I here for? And you're making fun of my coat. Well, I'm a detective. I'm looking for somebody. Boom, I turn it around on you. What's up with the hat? Simpler times. You have reasons, conversations. So when you walk in, you're not wearing what you think is something you saw in a show. You're wearing something that's emotionally tied to you because you're passionate about what it represents, because you have a foundation for what makes you passionate. Right. I like simple times. I stand for people being free and being able to do what they want. In the 1950s or something, or 1920s, those eras kind of remind me of that. So that fashion, those kind of things, that's something that you can pull from. But if you don't have something that you can stand for, when somebody attacks you for your style, you're like, dude, like, I'm sorry, I don't like really complicated techno-infected or techno-inspired fashion nowadays. But what do you think would look better? Well, it's like I have something quick I can respond with because I'm competent, because there's a reason why I'm doing it. And I think that's kind of what you're getting to is rewiring. Do you believe in what you're doing, or are you doing it for a reason to stand out? And if it's to stand out, rewire the reason you're doing it so you stand out and you have a reason you stand out that represents you, not the character from the show that you look nothing like and your personality's not even close, dude.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a good, like, and you will and you can use like mental strategies to kind of justify where you think you want to go, but you're not quite there yet. And that's definitely a technique, that can be, you can be beneficial to go through that in those situations where you have the fear and doubt. You need to justify it to yourself in order to move forward. But I guess what I'm really talking about is, recognizing what your mind is telling you and being able to either reject the negative things or take full control and like override or bypass what your mind's telling you, because it's gonna have the fear and doubt. So like a mentally strong person in this scenario is just, you really have to you have to look at your mind as a tool. It's an evolutionary tool. Think of it as a workbench. Like, you are the worker using the workbench and your mind is the workbench. So the actual process of reactive thought patterns you can't control. But as the worker, as the arbiter of what your mind is doing, you can look at a thought that you have and decide, is this a thought that benefits me or helps me in some way? Or is this a thought that hurts me and is counterintuitive to what I want to ultimately achieve? And you can decide, based on that awareness, and it all comes down to an awareness of your thoughts. You are not your mind. Your mind is a tool. You are separate from your mind. So you can look at your mind and you can watch your thoughts, realize what's going through your head, and say, I don't want to think that. Like if you're, and
it's like the devil in your ear. It's like, is this me? Or is this not? Like, I'm the kind of person who's trying to get over this. Is this voice in my head telling me that I shouldn't even try to get over it because I'm a piece of shit and that's who I am? Is that me? Because I'm trying to get over it. So that doesn't sound like me. It's counterintuitive. Yeah, exactly. Like, I used to be a piece of shit. That might have been who I was.
But I think you should leave. I used to be a piece of shit. This isn't slicked back. This is pushed back.
but for real, it's a real thing where people will look at themselves and hear those voices in their head and they'll be like, that's who I am. It's like, but wait, I thought you were the person who overcomes that. Well, I am. Well, then why are you telling yourself, or why are you agreeing with yourself that you're not that person?
Well, let me give a different example. So it kind of comes...
But it is a good thought because a lot of people do have the struggle. It's huge.
Right. No, everybody does.
Everybody does to some degree. Yeah. But some people really suffer from it, where it's like something traumatizing or like a public high school humiliation that they just could never let go of throughout their life. Something that's like, you know what? Because of the way this happened, I can't let it go. It's going to affect me this type of way, and it's going to alter how I view myself.
Right.
You can tell yourself, okay, I know I need help. I've seen a counselor. I need to overcome this. But if you hear that voice saying, but that's who you are, at some point you have to say, I need, number one with healing is separating myself from all these exterior thoughts that are not conducive to what I'm conducive and constructive. They're all close.
Yeah,
to what I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm going to make this a really level floor, and then this thought in my head's like, that's going to be really hard. It's like, so should I not try to do that?
Right. Exactly.
What's the end goal in that thought?
So I've got, all right, different scenario, different example entirely, and I think this kind of goes into what we're saying and also kind of opens the door for other ideas. So it kind of comes to the idea of like a mental discipline in a way. So, this scenario is like, let's say you wake up, you've been working out lately, you want to get more in shape, you've been going to the gym, blah, blah, blah. There's going to be days where you wake up and you're not going to feel like working out. Your mind's going to tell you you're tired. It's going to try to justify everything. It's like, oh, well, your buddy might call you. You don't know, like, you might go to brunch or whatever. Like, you don't really have time to go to the gym. So, like, just in case he calls or whatever, just, you don't have to. So your mind's going to come up with all these reasons. But it takes, like, the idea of going into manual override is saying, I know I don't want to do this. I know it's going to suck. I know it's going to be hard. But I'm going to do it anyway because I'm going to choose to ignore every thought that my mind's telling me why I shouldn't do this, why to justify not to do it. And I'm going to do it because I'm in control and my mind is just a tool. And as soon as you break away from your mind and are able to decide what thoughts and emotions are beneficial to you and whether you hang on to those or feed into them or not, it's a very liberating thing. It's like your whole mind, it just becomes clear because you now have the choice of what you want to think and how you want to handle anything external because you can't control that. Like, there's always going to be situations when something bad happens. Most people will go into a state of stress. In a state of stress, you're not able to function properly. You're not able to make the right decisions.
Your mind becomes narrow and you only see what's
like
in front of you. You don't see what's outside.
Fear and panic.
You lose options.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, fear and panic will cause you to make the wrong decisions. So if you can just recognize, in this moment, faced with an external scenario where you become reactive to it, if you can learn to recognize that, take a step back outside of your mind, outside of yourself, and say, is this helpful to the scenario? Is feeling stress in this situation going to help me? Or is it just going to make me more worried? Is it just going to make me more frantic and slip up and then do something wrong that I don't want to do? The answer is yes. You basically have to override your mind and say, this is what I'm going to do based on what I've thought before. This is my goal, and my mind is not going to convince me otherwise. So I am going to get up, I'm going to put my shit on, and I'm going to go to the gym. And like, for me, it was like getting out of bed. It was a simple act of just literally physically taking the covers off, rolling out of bed. When I didn't want to, I knew like if I just do it, then from there it's going to be easier, and it's going to be fine. I'm going to forget about it in 2 minutes, and it's not going to be a big deal. And like, once you understand that, then it gives you the control. It gives you you're in the driver's seat with the stick shift, and you can choose, okay, wait, reverse or sixth gear or whatever,
A really good way I like to describe it too is, think of your body. Your brain knows how to breathe, knows how to poop, it knows how to eat.
Right. It knows those things, but you don't know how to do those things.
And that's
it just does it.
And that's the big thing. You've never had to teach yourself how to poop. Although, if you think about it, how complex do you think it would be to try to figure out how to poop? You wouldn't even know where to begin. But your body knows how to communicate with the rest of your body, and it knows how to just do it. But it is your brain that's making yourself poop. While the rest of your organs and everything is processing and getting you to that point, your brain is the one that's like, hey, buddy, it's time. It's going to happen. Let's go out there, get in this position in the field, and then just, you don't know what's about to happen, but I'm going to show you. And then you're like, what is that? And it's like, you just pooped. I've never done that before. I don't know. How did I even do that? You don't need to worry about that. We, the body, the mind, the brain, we know how to do that. What I try to tell people is your brain is a tool. You are not your brain. You're the soul, the spirit. You're the one that controls the brain. In other words, your body's a perfect mechanism. Your brain works so well. It heals cuts. It heals wounds. It poops. It eats. It breathes. It does all of these things to function. You're the one who's in control. So when your body says, hey, this hurts, this just hurt really bad, you're the one who chooses how to react to that hurt, how to react to each situation. When you realize, like, well, this is my body, and my body literally just survives like a magical, slab of meat. This is amazing. This obstacle seems like nothing compared to this amazing body. So I see your obstacle, friend, and I have no say. After I finish my sentence, I'll never think about this obstacle again. I'm going to go back to focusing on what I want because I'm in control. When you start to get that down, you separate from all the things that get thrown away. Again, look at the Bible. If you're going towards God and all this stuff, the Bible doesn't say, hey, if you go towards God, you give yourself up and just lead towards the idea of perfection, whether you're religious or not. Even the Bible says when you do that, there's going to be a backlash. The devil's going to try to stop you. He's going to try to fight against it because he doesn't want you to go that way. And that's kind of the idea, is it's like when you're sitting there and you're like, everything's great. If all of your mind is like, I'm just made, everything's great, and then something bad happens, is that going to break you back down to where you look at yourself and you're like, oh, I am a failure. Why did I even try? Why did I think I could have done all that? Or are you going to say, no, here's the devil trying to stop me from getting what I've gotten by ignoring him. So all of this negative thoughts, all of this negative stuff, if I get knocked down, am I going to let it keep coming at me? Or am I going to acknowledge that I overrode myself, built myself up, and if I get knocked down, I keep going because that's a learning lesson. I need to look for what I can learn from that instead of looking at what that situation is trying to tell me about myself.
Right, because there's multiple spheres of awareness here. It's like, you have the close sphere. It's like your conscious thoughts in the moment happening all the time, and then there's kind of the wider sphere of like, this is where I want to go. This is the direction that I'm going towards, no matter what no matter what happens, basically. And another example I wanted to bring up too. It's like, you see these like Shaolin monks, and they're like holding bricks, or like they're like sitting on nail beds and shit. It's like, there's a certain level of mental control there that the normal person cannot fathom or handle, where that you're experiencing great pain, but those monks know that it's not going to kill them. It's going to suck. It's going to really suck. It's going to be agonizing every second. But it's the mental override. It's saying that this pain is essentially not real because I'm not dying. My body is not actually being torn apart or, whatever. Or like eating hot sauce. It's like eating super hot sauce. Your tongue is not on fire, but your brain's telling you it's on fire. It's literally the same receptors as fire.
Disclaimer,
receptors.
I feel like certain things are warning signs that it's like, hey, this pain in your foot, if it goes any further, you might hit a nerve.
Like, I'm not saying put your hand on a hot plate.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, sometimes it's your nerves being like, hey, that's the body's way of saying there are parts of your body that are like, I'm going to tell you if you keep doing this, you could cut off connection to this working part.
Right. But
that's the thing. That is a thing.
And that's kind of the larger sphere of awareness.
Yeah,
it's like, sitting on the nail bed that it's not going to kill you, but the smaller sphere of that awareness is this fucking hurts. This sucks. Why am I doing this? You should stop. And, for what, maybe that's not a goal for normal people is to be able to sit on
a lot of those people are
beds.
able to get to that point where they can do that and their body's not actually punctured. Because it's body displacement. It is mind over matter. It's like, yes, this is scary. But when you understand it can hurt you and you're afraid of it hurting you, it hurts you. But when you say this thing can't hurt me unless I allow it to, then I can lay on a bed of nails and not be punctured and have somebody put another bed of nails on top of me and stand on top of it. And I have no holes in my body. Yeah. It's because it's mind over matter. It's perfect displacement. I'm perfectly balancing this. If one goes through, they all go through. I'm perfectly balancing this and displacing the weight. Yeah. It's obviously not something I plan on trying to master, but I can appreciate the art.
I mean, if you've trained your brain, like these monks, they sit around and meditate all day, like they understand this stuff. If you get to a certain point where you're basically out of exercises and practices to do to strengthen that mental acuity, then it's like you go from controlling your thoughts to laying on nail beds, because that trains your brain to go into manual override. Yeah. And two other examples, I'll just fire them out. We can talk about them separately if you want. Sickness, and maybe I want to get back to that. But also the other one was, I can't remember it now. But
let's go with sickness.
We'll go with sickness. It'll come back to me. But it's like, I had a discussion with my girlfriend the other day. It was. She woke up and she felt like she was getting sick. She felt like she was getting sick. No fever, no necessary symptoms, but you're on the precipice. And, not to get into a debate about, pathogenic biology or whatever, but like, germs are germs. They're in your body. We're exposed to all kinds of shit, and your immune system is a defense. And as soon as you let that defense down, the germs that are already there are willing to take over. Well, our immune system is controlled by the brain. So if you have a conscious state of, I'm about to get sick, I feel like I am getting sick, I'm getting close, I'm moving closer to sickness.
You're giving permission.
You're basically opening the gates. So, it comes to a mental awareness of,
I am strong and I don't get sick.
I'm not going to get sick.
I feel something. I'm getting sick. It's coming. It's, I feel more tired. It's the same thing as hypnosis. You feel your eyelids getting heavy. It's the whole idea of hypnosis is before you go under, obviously I do something to snap your body and trigger something, I say sleep. Your brain, because you have a shock to the body, your brain tries to cling to something, clings to sleep, and you go to sleep. But everything leading up to that is you just basically in meditation, while I tell you your body's getting heavy, your eyelids are getting heavy. I'm putting this into your head. It's the same thing when you're like, I feel like I'm getting sick. That word sick is tired, weak, exhausted, unmotivated. It's all of these horrible thoughts all in one idea.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and affirming, I am about to become this. I'm on my way. Same as if I say, hey, Evan, do you want to hang out?
Yes.
He hesitates like that in real life too.
What?
I'm kidding. But
he looked at me. I was like, I'm part of this. I'm part of this.
I knew you wouldn't know that. I wanted to sell it for that, so it worked out for me.
I remember my other thing, but
it worked out for me.
Keep going with
yes, but the idea is that if you say, yeah, I do want to hang out. In order for us to do that, because you're putting into with your mind, you're saying, I want to hang out with him. I'm going to. Now I say, I want to hang out with you too, since you've reached out, but there's a stipulation, there's a roadblock. In order to hang out, I need you to pick me up. Now, you have to pick me up. You have to get ready and get up, get your keys. You have to get in your car, and you have to actively go to pick me up. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. If I say I'm going to go do something, my mind is picturing without me trying to picture picking you up. I know that when you say I need to get picked up, I'm like, okay, I got to do this. I got to pick him up. I'm picturing picking you up. It's the same idea. I feel like I'm getting sick. Once you hang on to that and you start to internalize that, you picture yourself and see yourself as this, and you lead yourself into it, which is somewhat placebo. So even if you are sick, you could end up sicker and feeling weaker and having the sickness longer than you would if you were like, I don't have anything. And you're like, I have just a cough, and you're not acknowledging it yet. You know, you're still accomplishing stuff. You're still going, I'd hate to say you're going to work, but like you're still going to work. You're still doing things while the other person can't get out of bed.
So, so like I'd like to pose a question here to that end. It's like, okay, you're about to get sick. Let's say you're biologically on the cusp of sickness, regardless of the mind. In one scenario, you choose to believe that you are getting sick. In the other scenario, you choose to believe that you can beat the sickness. Do you think there is any percentage, even if it's a 0.00001 percentage, that you can affect that outcome based on your mentality? I would argue yes. I would say that it's either some effect, if little at all, or no effect. I would say that it's more likely that you would have some kind of effect than not.
And I would say
it may not be significant.
I'd even argue with COVID.
Right.
Hyping it up, giving the scare, made people
biologically created.
But it's like, but when you really hype it up and you're like, oh no, I got the vid. I have it. I tested positive. The weight of that idea.
You're more likely to accept
versus like I've had it a few times now. And most recently when I got it for like my 5th or 6th time, when it hit me, it's like immediately I was like, oh, I got the fatigue and all this. It was, again, I've always been like, sicknesses don't affect me. And when I get sick, people are like, are you sick? I'm like, I don't know. I don't think about if I'm sick. Am I walking? Am I talking? Do I feel fine? Yeah. Yeah, but you have a cough. No, okay. I don't really care what that is. I have a cough. I've had coughs when I was a baby. I've had coughs when I was in elementary school. I'm in high school and now I have a cough. Like it'll be gone by next week. If that means I'm sick, then I guess I'm sick. But I've never felt sick.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got COVID that it hit me and I was like, oh, this isn't me. This one's not me. This is a computer made thing. And
for me, it's when I drink too much.
Oh, every time.
And I'm like, okay, the nausea's coming. I can choose to fight it or I can choose to accept it. I honestly choose to accept it at that point because I'm like, all right, whatever's in my stomach, I gotta puke it up
every time.
But you could fight it.
You're like, my body. This is like the heat. Like, hey, this is fire. It can damage you. It's like, let's get this out of me. This this isn't no good.
No, I'm going to go to sleep drunk and never wake up.
I got to absorb the rest of this in my liver.
But that aside.
Yeah, of course.
So I have another scenario. Have you heard of the Iceman, Wim Hof?
Wim Hof, Iceman. Who hasn't heard of
Who hasn't
Wim
heard
Hof,
of it?
Iceman? Yeah.
Guy, you know. But
We sell ice baths at Costco now.
Ice what?
Ice bath.
Oh, ice baths. Yeah, dude.
Ice baths at
I mean, there's a
Costco.
lot to that. So, perfect example.
If you want an inflatable
Ice
bath, go to Costco or Costco.com.
Just like any other bath, but with ice. Do you have to add your own ice, or does it cool it?
It doesn't come with it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's just a pool. It's just a pool. It's just a human-sized pool at that point.
Maybe I honestly I didn't read too much into it. I know the hot tubs have like their own thing to keep the water hot. Maybe I would assume for the price, I would think it would be easier to heat water than cool water. So for the price, I would assume
you can
it's
cool
not-
it yourself. Just add water.
Add more.
Just add cold water.
Just add. You got some ice. Put some ice, and that'll make it even colder.
But
if it's cold water, it's already cold.
But to get back to this though,
makes
this is a perfect example of the mental control and the override, because anybody who's done ice, even cold showers, that's kind of part of it. But it comes down to this really sucks, and like so I did
A
this
good
for
way
a
to
while.
say it is anybody who's taken hot showers and like cold water is good for your hair. So it's like if you take a hot shower, it's good to end with cold. So a lot of people do that. So I
Right.
think there's enough people out there who might be able to relate to the idea of taking a really hot shower and then at the end, after everything's washed out, you go to rinse in cold. There's certain times where you're stronger and certain times where you're weaker. And in those stronger moments, you put your head under, you hold your breath, you put your head under, you're like, I could do this all day. And then there's other times you're like,
This really
ow, why is it? Why I don't remember it hurting? Like it's, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
there's just times where you're not as strong. You don't have that. You didn't get as much prep in the morning. You weren't as motivated. When you went in there, your spirit was weak, and when you felt the elements, you just reacted. Versus overriding them.
Right. So for me, I have a strategy for when I am cold, and that comes to it's to this mental override kind of thing. So if I'm outside and it's let's say it's 32 degrees, it's freezing. What I do, the mental gymnastics that I do for that, is I picture. So if I feel cold, my body's telling me I'm cold. If you feed into that, you're gonna shiver. You're gonna feel more cold. It's gonna suck even worse if you feed into it. But
A quick thing is like emotion. Like law of attraction, your thoughts dictate what your emotions are.
Right.
If I jump in an ice bath and immediately my emotions are like, oh, this is cold, then then whether I acknowledge them or not, my thoughts subconsciously are going to be, I'm in the middle of the Arctics. I feel like I'm stuck in my freezer.
I'm gonna die.
But if you rewire those thoughts, you rewire what you're experiencing.
So what my go-to in those scenarios when I do feel that coldness, I basically imagine myself, okay, I'm not outside in the cold right now. It is summer and it is hot out, and I stepped into a walk-in refrigerator to cool off, and this feels amazing. I just came in out of the cold, and this cold is, or I just came in out of the heat, out of the sweat, and this air feels amazing. This cold air, finally cooling off, and like that for me works because it's like it takes the level of stress down.
Because there's real fears, and those things are reactive in your body. So so basically what you're doing there is you are
I'm tricking myself.
from a certain point in all of our lives as kids, we're beaten into adults, which means this is how the world is. It hurts. You need to understand the pain of the world. Once you do, then you now react to the world. But when you get into a situation like that, I mean, that's kind of the thing is like, but wait, I'm not in fear. I'm not in trouble. I'm not stuck in the Arctics or locked in a
I'm not
freezer.
gonna die.
I'm choosing this. This is fine. Then your body doesn't react the same way. So it's not even just about rewiring and saying like, and people will attack me online, I'm sure, for this, but I understand. Your
Bring
body,
it.
your body is meat, and cold water will cool off the body. But it's not even just that I believe you can override those thoughts and change how you're experiencing it. I believe you can experience what's happening. I believe when you change that and and you look at it that way, I believe so your heart beats different. Your circulation changes. I believe your body warms itself up, and you naturally fight it. So it's not that, well, you're overriding and telling yourself you're not cold as you freeze to death, retard, stupid idiot. It's like, no, you don't use the R word. That's extremely offensive. And second, if I'm believing this, if I'm telling myself I ate this, I need to poop, then I poop. If I'm telling my body I am really warm and that's why I'm enjoying this water, you're creating the reality where your body's like, okay, well, we have to heat ourselves up to enjoy the water, because I am not a reaction to what my brain does. My brain controls my body. My brain's a computer. I'm not in the computer. I'm using the computer. So because this is my computer, I'm using it. So if my computer is like, hey, I'm getting cold, I go, yeah, no, we're warm and we're enjoying this. And the computer goes, okay, we'll heat the body up so that we can enjoy this.
Exactly.
It sounds almost too simple.
I mean, dude,
because
Wim Hof climbed a mountain in his
it's not
boxers.
simple. It really
no
is.
shoes.
Dude, well, that's the funnest thing about this is the concept is the most simple thing you could ever explain to somebody. Or the idea is the most simple thing you could explain. But understanding the concept is like, that's the hardest part. Doing it's not hard. It's how I believe we all work. But rewiring how you view how things work is hard.
And this goes to anyone out there who, maybe just dabbling in these ideas, hasn't necessarily put them to practice. And it is a mental discipline thing. It is a muscle, and it's something that you can't go from just being totally reactive and a normal person to being a superhuman, total control of your mind. Like there is a process where through exposure and through like the learning process of being able to go into manual override in these scenarios will lead you to the next scenario and the next scenario. Like at first it was more like, for me anyway, it was more, that thought is not constructive. That thought is actually hurting me. It's making me feel bad. It's actually giving me an emotion that I don't want to feel right now. I'm going to choose not to think about it right now. I'm going to choose to reject that thought, maybe reframe. And that kind of comes to like the perception versus reality topic we had a few weeks ago. But it's like, I learned early in the process that I could kind of reframe how I saw things, and that would help. But it's not 0 to 100 in an instant. It takes time. It takes effort. And then like, you work, like even the people that do the cold therapy stuff, it sucks at first and you get used to it. Like there needs to be mental practice, like a muscle, like working out, where you can get from the point that you are now to the point of like superhuman mental control, where you can lay on nail beds in the freezing cold, and have someone beating you with a stick at the same time. It's like it takes a second, and the practice is worth the payoff, because once you get past a certain point, then you look back, then like rudimentary reactive thoughts that you have, you're now able to just brush them off. They don't affect you at all. Like you don't get pissed off when you're waiting in line too long. You realize it's like, oh well, I can't change this, so why do I stress about it? You realize that stress in itself kills you. It kills your cells. It's harmful.
An obvious
so
one.
Why do it?
An obvious one a lot of people can do too is traffic. When you're in traffic and somebody's driving ungodly slow, and it's like you're getting mad, and you like, maybe you start to ride their ass. Maybe you hope they're looking in the rearview mirror and just giving them a look like judgmental, like, are you stupid? You're giving them this look like, what are you doing? Not that I've done that, but it's like, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're hoping they look back and they're like, what am I doing? And they just fix it so you can get to work quicker.
Who lives on a pineapple?
But for me, it was the same thing. Understanding the stuff, practicing the stuff. I've been doing this stuff for years. And I was like, okay. And I'm in traffic and I'm late to work. It's my fault. Everything's my fault. And I'm trying to hurry. And I'm mad that it's like, this person's not factoring in other people who might be late, and just keep things going. Why are you being slow? Oh, well, I don't need to be in a hurry. Well, maybe you should be for other people. Be considerate. I'm not thinking about you or anybody else at all. It's me. I need to go to work. I need you to hurry. And that was my moment at the time. And I'm going, I get upset and I get frustrated, and I had a moment to cut around him. And I went to cut around, and I cut around in kind of an aggressive way, like whip behind him, like, I need to go around. Not like blinker, give me a few seconds. Here I go. It's like, no, it's open. So like, I can just go around finally. It's about time I can get around you. So as I go by, I look and I see this old lady. And immediately I was like, I'm a piece of shit. Fuck me. And I just hated myself. And ever since then, it has completely changed my driving. It's changed a lot of things, because when I'm driving now, my grandma passed away, but at the time she was alive, and that's the first thing that went through my head was, what if that was my grandma?
Yeah.
And I literally thought about it like this. I was like, what if that was my grandma and I didn't know me, but I could look in on some guy driving behind my grandma like this? How would I want to react to that guy when he pulled over? Well, that's me. I want to beat my own ass? That's crazy. That's crazy. I'd want to beat my own ass. How do I have control over this entire body and this mind? And I just, on my way to work, found a situation to want to beat my own ass. That's crazy that on the way to work, I could be like, here's a moment that I would beat my own ass.
And you got to do it Tyler Durden style.
Yeah, you're just driving to work. You're like, the car's swerving. You like flip it off a bridge. Your car goes crashing. Like, what happened? You're like,
his name was Robert Paulson.
Son of a bitch. But that's the idea. Is it's like when you look at it from another situation, it doesn't affect you. And I remember there was a time I was working at a job, and me and a buddy were walking. Me and another guy I worked with were walking up into the job, and this car came, and it wasn't going too fast or anything, but it got kind of close and was like, whoopsies. Like you could tell it wasn't threatening. I didn't react or anything, because in my head, I'm like, I'm relaxed. You can't fuck with me now.
Yeah.
So you could be driving too fast. I'll find a way to get away. I'll figure it out. I'm not worried about you, Superman. So I'm walking and I see this car coming kind of quick. It doesn't even faze me. I can already read it. It's starting to slow down. This person knows they're going a little quick, and it's going to be an abrupt stop, and they're going to feel embarrassed. I can already feel it coming. They stop a little quick. The guy next to me has some kind of anger issues a little bit. He turns to the car, and he's like, watch where you're goes off. Watch where you're going. You're going to have me. Just goes off, right?
Yeah.
And then gives like a hand gesture, not like, just like, yeah, yo, fucking, yeah, and starts walking. Woo, very quickly, this dude comes out of nowhere and goes off, gets in his face. I thought he was about to start swinging.
Another guy.
Out of nowhere. And he's like, why? He's like, watch how the fuck you talk to my mother. She is elderly. She is 60-something years old, and just starts going in at this guy. And suddenly, he doesn't look angry anymore. He's like ashamed, scared. He's like, whoa. He's not defending himself. And how could you? You screamed at a 60, 70-year-old something lady.
Yeah.
How can you defend yourself? But that's a lot of it is when you realize, like, hey, would you have screamed at that lady if it was your grandma? No. Well, then why are you screaming at this guy's grandma? You know, it's like if you don't put yourself in that situation, there could be a situation where you actually scream at somebody's grandma and put yourself in a situation where you're doing exactly what you would kick your own ass if you did, or if somebody else did.
Then the other version of you comes and kicks your ass.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of people don't get. We're all in this together. When you find that common ground of like that coexistence of thought, or a coexistence of emotion of like, I love myself. and I also love everybody else. I'm going to learn to split the difference. You know, when I meet you, I'm not just going to fully love you and I'm not going to hate you, but I'm going to be open, respectful, and give you a shot.
Well, that comes down to another thing too, is
That we need to do that for ourselves.
Right. You need to protect your mental state. You need to protect your sense of peace or tranquility. And that comes on a mental level of like who you are and all that, but that gets into the ego and all that. That's a different animal. But in the case of being in the driver's seat and maybe someone cut you off, maybe you cut someone off and then they're yelling at you. Either way, you need to choose to be non-reactive, because when you react, you're not going to like the result. So in these scenarios, you know, like me and you've talked about this, whenever somebody, like whenever I fuck up on the road and someone's mad at me, I just smile and wave.
Yeah.
Because it makes me feel better about it, because it's like I'm kind of patronizing them, I'm throwing it back at them, but I'm not freaking out. I'm not altering the way I drive. I'm not going to cause any turmoil. And it's protecting your mental state. It's like, okay,
I took what you're throwing at me and I'm throwing back at you goofiness.
Yeah.
And either you can react to my goofiness or goofiness disperses. You're like, you fucking stupid idiot, whatever, fuck you. And you drive away mad. You're like, this guy's just smiling and waving like an idiot.
Yeah.
Fucking idiot. But you're not going to be like, you're smiling and waving, I'm going to grab my gun now. It doesn't escalate things.
Right.
It's a good neutralizer.
And it protects you too, because it's like, you know, one person cuts you off and it pisses you off on the way to work, and then you get to work and you're pissed off.
Yeah, you could view it as this person wronged me, or you could view it as this person's wrong. So I'm going to react right. And then when they leave, it justifies. You're like, exactly, you ran away because you knew you were the one in the wrong. Maybe I cut you off a little bit and I went like this and said sorry, and then you got crazy and I was like, hey, come on. Maybe I looked at you and while you were screaming, I was like, come on, relax.
Yeah.
And you were like, fuck you, and drove away. But that fuck you I take as I'm right. You knew that you were overreacting. You're like, whatever, fuck this. And you drove away because you just wanted to be done, because you knew this isn't going to escalate. I'm being stupid. I'm out of here. Well, that's how I'll see it.
This goes into the mental override. Because if you did something wrong and someone's up in your face and in your fucking grill and it's like, fuck you, dude, fuck you. You know, like, I can choose for that not to hurt me mentally or anything. You know, it's like, yeah, I fucked up, but like, whatever. I'm not dead. You know, it's like I move on. I'm gonna choose to choose to like not think about that one thought anymore, because yeah, I fucked up. I could feel bad about it. It could affect my life further, or it could just not, and I throw it in the trash.
You know,
it's like you have control. That's manual override. It's taking what you want and eliminating what you don't.
To share a story, I'm sure you've heard, was I worked at a retail store, and I had a guy come through, and he wanted to split his payment into two different cards. So I rang all this stuff up. It wasn't too clear that he wanted to ring it on two different cards, so I hit the card button. He put his card, and it went all onto that card. He was irate. This man started going off on me, screaming at me. I mean, screaming. Like, everybody in the store turned. It was one of those.
Causing a scene. It was
a little more than a scene.
Yeah.
It's like a scene is like somebody's yelling and like a couple registers turn like, whoa, what's going on over here? This was screaming. This was like other departments were like, what's going on up there?
Someone calls security.
Should I duck behind the counter? What's going on up there in that other department over there? I hear screaming, because he was screaming. And he's yelling at me, and it started, and he was like, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. I mean, he was going by my name tag. He's like, fuck you, Alex, blah, blah, blah. I mean, going off and screaming at me. And the whole time, the moment he was going off, because he said, immediately he was like, I'm going to split this in two things. And I was like, I apologize. You know, it's my fault. Whatever, this and that. He's like, no, like, what the fuck? And just lost his shit completely. And the whole time I realized this is so absurd. And I think it was how quick he got upset that made it easier for me to separate. But I think it's the biggest message to everybody is to learn to separate.
Yeah.
So in that moment, naturally, you want to defend yourself. But when you realize this guy is screaming at me, but this isn't about me, you separate. So this guy kept screaming, and suddenly I no longer looked at it as I fucked up. I now look at it as this guy is upset and he's narrow-minded. Because he's so stressed and so angry, he doesn't know how to articulate himself. He has no idea that he doesn't feel everybody's eyes watching him. He doesn't know the situation. He's too hyper-focused on how angry he is. This has nothing to do with me. This comes from somewhere else. I realize that.
Yeah.
So immediately I was like, I'm sorry. I apologize through the whole transaction. It got, or through the end of the transaction. As I gave him his receipt, I said, again, I really apologize. Moving forward, I'm going to make sure I don't inconvenience anybody the way I've inconvenienced you today. And I was genuine. I meant what I said.
Yeah.
Because again, it's how I viewed it. I told myself, no, this has nothing to do with me. But this guy is going through, I had nothing but sympathy and empathy. I was like, this guy's going through something so serious that he is losing himself in public, causing a scene. And something I did facilitated that. This guy is so close to falling apart, and I didn't, regardless if it was my fault or not, I did not start the transaction by helping this human being. I started it by being like, I'm a person who works at a thing, and I'm going to do a transaction, and then, but as he started screaming, immediately I clicked, and I was like, no, I'm a human being, and this person is hurting, they're in trouble, and that's not how I've been treating them. And so I communicated, I told him, I was like, again, moving forward, I'm going to make sure I do not inconvenience anybody. I've inconvenienced you today. I said it smoother than that. And I was like, and as I hand him his receipt, but I really do hope you have a good rest of your night. I'm sorry. And I meant it. And and when I say I meant it, there's emotion behind that.
You conveyed it.
He heard a real person, and he sat there, heard that, snatched the receipt out of my hand and goes, fuck you, screamed at me, still screaming, and then walked out. It was about 10 minutes later, this guy walks back in straight to me and goes, hey, I want to apologize to you. This and that, blah, blah, blah. I said, I understand, we're all going through things. We all have difficult moments. I get it. He goes, no. He's like, no. He's like, there's no justification for how I talked to you and how I treated you. And then suddenly he's telling me that the way he acted is unjustifiable. And just went on to just open up and told me, my wife just left me. She got the house. She got custody of my kids. I don't even have my kids anymore. I don't have my house that I bought. He goes, I barely have the car I drove here. And then he told me, I'm so spread thin on money, I have to split my payments. And the fact that all of that went onto that card, I don't know what I'm going to do. And that's when I realized, even though I didn't know what was going on, I really did just make this guy's life harder. And it's like, we don't always know what our little actions do.
Yeah.
Because we're always just we're on autopilot, just trying to get through the day. And we don't realize, like, maybe some people really are in dire situations, and we need to listen to how they need this to work to help them.
Well, just the simple act of that you said, like separating yourself from the situation.
And that's the biggest thing I want to emphasize.
You reacted better. Like, you could have gotten bad. You could have gotten...
I had all the right to be upset.
Yeah.
But instead of reacting, what I noticed was... What I literally, it sounds weird, what I felt after that conversation ended as he left was, he'll understand. I didn't know what it meant, but I just felt it. I was like, he'll get it. And then later, it was after everything happened, it was like a few days later, it clicked. It's like, that's how that works. This is how it actually works. When he went out to his car and unloaded his groceries, he sat there in his head and said, I cannot find one moment from what just happened to justify how I acted. He didn't react negatively. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. I was trying to do something. And then he came, and then by his own free will came in and tried to work out why he did it.
Yeah.
And I let him, and he explained what was going on and everything. We talked, gave him a hug. He was like, "You got this, man," And he was like, "Thank you." And he left. Even my GM and AGM came out and they're like, "How did you do this? This guy's he's been in here a few times. Like, how did you get him to apologize?" And I looked at him, I said, "I didn't get him to do anything. I just understood he was in a tough spot, and he came back and thanked me for basically understanding." Like, that was it.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't judge him for what he was going through. I understood if I lost my wife and kids, if I lost my house, if I lost everything that I had ever wanted to build for myself and it was all taken from me, and I could barely shop at a low-end retail store, I'd be pretty mad at the world too.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who the fuck you are. Fuck you for fucking having a job and being, why are you smiling at me? Like, why are you happy?
Well,
and I built everything and it was taken from me. Like, I get it. Like, I felt, the moment I felt that energy, it's like, you're a person in trouble. It's not about, like, I'm good. I'm happy. My life's going well. Why am I going to react bad? Well, you're going through something. I should take that seriously because you're a human being. And that's what it comes down to, is taking each other seriously. Not for points and being like, I care about people, but genuinely, when somebody's yelling at you, don't react because you're a good person and you put bad people in their place and teach them the right way. Maybe just understand some people are going through shit and hold them so that they don't hurt themselves. If there's somebody who's mentally ill and they're just swinging and punching themselves, you don't beat their ass to get them to stop hitting themselves. You hold them back from hurting themselves.
Right.
That's how you have to do it. And it's the same thing when you see somebody lashing out and hurting themselves in public. You don't start taking punches at them and be like, "Look at you, you freak. I'm going to take out my camera. This is going to be your life now." Like, you don't do that. You keep the cameras away, have a one-on-one, help that person because they're going through some real shit. And that's what it means to be a human, not capitalizing off what they're going through to show everybody so we can learn together. But just help that one person.
I mean, that's
keep everybody else out of it. It's that simple. Be a human.
Be a human.
Be a human.
And that speaks to kind of the power of being able to be humane.
Be humane.
But that speaks to the power of what the benefits are of having that level of mental control. Because that in that scenario, you were getting verbally assaulted, and that most people would react in a negative way, or at least come back with some type of defensiveness or snarkiness or even aggression.
It's public.
People
are watching you while you're getting screamed at. There is a part of you that's like, I'm a bitch. But at the same
I didn't
time,
do anything
it's
wrong.
like, I made it about him, not everybody watching. And that's the whole cell phone thing I hate. Keep everybody else out of it. Don't worry about everybody watching. Make it about the person screaming at you. Don't be like, but everybody's watching us. Now I feel like I need to react because you're embarrassing me. No, just handle the guy in front of you. And things work out,
Well, you didn't make it about anything. You made the conscious choice to handle this in a way where it's protecting you psychologically. You're separating yourself from it, and you're able now to approach this situation from a place of neutrality and like almost
empathy.
like a quantum openness to where it's like,
maybe I don't know what's going on in your life, but I'm open to understanding that because you're acting this way, my brain, that's literally, that is how it worked. I remember in that moment, there was a snap that I didn't make happen, but I let happen. And that was a part of my brain was like, just simply said to me, this isn't about you. And I think we all kind of deep down feel that in those situations where it's like, this person's yelling at me. This isn't about me. But if that person makes it about me, I feel like it's about me.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, he made it about me, but I knew. Like, that voice told me it's not about you.
right. You have a conscious decision at that point.
Immediately when I heard that voice say it's not about you, I stopped and I was like, I'm not attached to this at all. This isn't about me. And I didn't let didn't let him. He wanted me to react, and all I could think is if I would have reacted, if I would have gotten worked up, if I would have put on a show, if I would have gotten angry, I could tell this dude was ready to swing. And it's like, if I would have gotten in a fight, even if I kept my job, this guy's on camera, swinging an employee, going to jail. Did I make his life better? And that's what it is at the end of the day. If you pull out your camera, look at this crazy guy, he swung at me, I knocked him out. Oh, look, you bitch, you fucking, everybody online's like, yeah, this guy thought he could talk shit to you and call you a piece of shit and you knocked him out. It's like, yeah, in the middle of a crowded store where everybody saw it happen, on camera, online, this guy's life's ruined. He also went to jail because of that. Yeah. He also will definitely never get to see his kids again because of that. Yeah. Like, all of this just ruined his life because of this one moment as everything collapsed around him. You can be that person when you see somebody in conflict. You can be that person to make the conscious decision. Do I want to capitalize off of your situation, or do I want to help you because you're in trouble? Yeah. Do I want to try to get money for getting hit on the job? No. What I want is to help this person from going to jail and hurting their life worse. So I'm not going to amp you up. I'm not going to hype you up. I'm not going to argue with you because you're going through something. I'm going to talk to you. What's going on? I'm really sorry. Again, I'm really sorry. Fuck you. I apologize. Because if you just want to scream at me, that's fine. Because to me, I can take you yelling at me if it means you getting some of that out, because I can tell you're in serious pain. You're about to snap. I don't want to see you snap. I don't want to see you ruin your life. And I hate it online. There's all these people. You see people who are mentally ill who are falling apart and they're snapping in public and people just egg them on. Oh, yeah? Oh, and you'll see the person kind of try to leave and people egg them on like, well, you said this. No, back up what you said. Come back and continue that conversation while you're falling apart on camera. And that person ends up swinging and then people beat their ass and everybody's like, yeah, justice served. And it's like, we're all humans. We saw a human that was hurt and we all liked a video of other humans jumping and tearing them apart. There's a movie that reminds me of that scene and I can't place it. I feel like I feel like it's traumatizing. It must be Watership Down. Those bunnies just ripped each other apart. It has to be something like that because I don't picture humans.
I don't know if I saw that one.
But, oh my God, it was terrible. Right. I grew up with I grew up with a rabbit, so my parents thought it would be good to play a rabbit movie It's a cartoon. So like, here's a movie about rabbits and it's a cartoon. Dude, Watership Down is fucking dark. It's like the dark aspects of humanity, but the way that they convey it so it's not as creepy is like, let's use rabbits. It's
all right. Well, that's a conversation for another time.
Oh God!
But I wanted to.
If you've seen Watership Down, hop in the comments and tell me how long it took you to get over it.
But no, I mean that speaks into kind of the like the opposite of what we're talking about with mental control is where you allow your brain and your mind and your state to feed into things that are you're just reactive to. So like.
Which goes both ways.
Right, it goes both ways. It goes as
you get a bunch of fame and you just feed into it and fall apart, or you have terrible things and you fall apart. There is a level of you that needs to learn to control the mind, whether it's fame and good stuff or detriment and bad stuff.
Right, like you could be the person checking out that person and feed into the attack or any attack, any psychological attack or whatever, like you could feed into that. You can get even more charged and react a certain way.
No, I mean, even with good stuff. Though.
Right.
And people need to understand that this isn't something that's positive, negative. This is control over your thoughts. So there's plenty of people who become famous, but it's a quote by Chris Pratt or from the Bible or something, but Chris Pratt said it. I liked it. He said, when the light, he said, I'm paraphrasing now, don't let the light, the spotlight that's on you, consume the light that's within you. And the idea of that is even when everybody admires you and you're loved and you're doing everything right, when your emotions attach to your situation, you are doomed to die. That's the whole point of it. And it's the same thing. Whether it's somebody comes at you with something negative, you grab that negative and it drags you down. Or somebody gives you something positive, you grab it and it pulls you up. Can you maintain being up that high without falling? Did you get yourself up there, or did you let everybody else push you up there? Are you capable of getting yourself back down? That's what it all comes down to, is this is control over the mind. So whether somebody tries to tell you terrible things, unless you really believe it and you're like, I 100% want to be a piece of shit. Okay, feed into it. But if you want to be a good person, you should understand that you have to earn that. Right. So that means when somebody comes up and goes off on you, when somebody yells at you, don't take it personal, because you're trying to be a good person, right? So what does that have to do with it? Nothing. And it's the same thing. This is the art of it. It's the same thing when somebody comes and says, you're doing this amazing. You're doing this great. Don't accept it. Because if you accept the good stuff, you have to accept the bad stuff. You accept nothing. You say, I only accept my standards for myself and my accomplishments for my standards. You might tell me I'm doing great, but I haven't gotten there yet, and I'm not going to stop at your standards. I will appreciate you for saying that, but I will not let it get into my head, affect how I view what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I will, and because again, if you hang out with a bunch of people who are like, you can't let people fuck with you, fuck with your integrity, mess with who you are, do this, and make you look like a punk. If you're with those people for a long time, when somebody comes to you and needs help and they're just used to not being treated well and they go off on you, well, you hang out with these dudes, your instinct is knock that motherfucker out and teach them a lesson. Or you be a human. Don't let everybody else affect you. Have your mind in control. Have your goals in control. And when somebody out of nowhere comes at you and throws some wild shit at you, just be like, whoa, that's some wild shit, bro. Are you okay? Yeah. Don't be like, whoa, motherfucker, and just react and beat his ass, because now you're taking somebody who's going through something bad and in their world making it worse. And instead of realizing like, hey, there's other worlds here. If I'm trying to create a good one and this person comes to me, maybe I should try to help them to help me learn how to make some guy throwing crazy shit at me better. And you will notice, like I said, when I had the managers coming up, like, we know this guy. How did you do that? I'm like, it's crazy because I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
It's crazy that you think that I have some skill. All I did was treat him like I genuinely cared about him and not like a problem.
Well, okay. So,
but it's the same idea. If you're trying to do something worthwhile, trying to become something great, if you don't believe what you stand for and people are all about it, that's all you'll ever capitalize off of. And you'll just be like, I'm an icon. Look at me. Worship me.
Well,
but if you're like, hey, I created something that really helps people, and people are like,
and
how do you deal with the fame?
I think that's probably...
I went into this with the intention to help people. So I didn't go into this ever caring about how I'm viewed. So yeah, I didn't expect to get this famous and become like sexiest man of the year because I created a new bottling system for water. But it's like, I'm also not going to let this affect me because my goal is still set. My goal is not to be sexiest man. That's great. Thank you. I appreciate it. But I'm going to go on. Right. People have to have a foundation. They have to have a focus. They have to have a goal. You have to find in you, grab control of your mind, find what you like, what you're passionate about, what drives you, and don't let the outside things drag you down.
So I think that's definitely worth another discussion, even further to that. I mean, it's probably a good problem to have is that, to humble yourself at that level through mental control. But one of the things that you were talking about that I wanted to touch on before we got away from it, and we are kind of coming up on time here, but one of the things I wanted to at least go into at some extent is it kind of relates to what you were saying, but the idea of jealousy is another big mental control factor for as far as I see it, and it's kind of the idea that it takes a, like, your mind's going to hurt you in this sense where it's going to think of all the worst case scenarios, and it's an envy of something you're not. It's rooted in insecurity. But like, from a mental control perspective, something like jealousy is very easy to control. If you're kind of grounded in your own mind and your own ability to process information, because it's like, being jealous of something is kind of it's a conscious choice in a way, where you're saying that you're not good enough, or you're not at this level or something like that. So you're gonna bring yourself down in that way, and then you're gonna see all the terrible scenarios of what that means. And kind of like I think we kind of got off the track. I was trying to tie it to something you said, and it was perfect, but I can't remember it now. But it's the idea that like you could handle a situation where, yeah, maybe you're in a scenario where jealousy is even warranted, but in that case, you need to choose whether you let it affect you or not. Like in the case that, let's say you're a guy, and you have a girlfriend or something like that, and she has another guy friend or hangs out with the group or something like that. It's like, on one scenario, the mental control of you feeling jealous is going to feed into ideas that may or may not be real. Like, let's say in this scenario, nothing is actually happening, and this girl is just genuine friends with this guy as part of a group from people that she grew up with. It's like, you could feel jealous, and that will start to destroy you, or you can kind of realize it and maybe express it to her. There are ways to address it. This is kind of just a random scenario, but it's like the simple fact of what I'm saying is, you could choose to handle this two different ways, and it comes down to mental control. Do you choose to feed into your insecurities and double down on the jealousy, or do you choose to perhaps maybe have the confidence to acknowledge the situation, establish the boundaries or whatever, and then move forward from there? There's two scenarios you can go from. That one is gonna destroy this foundation that you're trying to build. One's going to strengthen it. So like, this all comes down to how you view a scenario and how you choose to react to it.
So what I love about this scenario, and jealousy as a topic,
because that is a very mental control.
We almost need to do an episode on each. We
should. And I hate jealousy, because I feel like you had something that I tied it to, and then you went a different way, dude. And I tried to come back.
I'm a chameleon. You jumped to this. I'm fully dedicated, bro.
We need to come back.
It's a whole different thing, but I'm dedicated, baby.
But I'm not gonna cut you off.
But
we'll wrap it up in the next 20 minutes.
The idea for this, for me, when it comes to this, is, again, I go into heat. If I touch something and it's hot, can I override and tell myself it's not hot? Yes, I can. Can that hurt me? Yes. Can it kill me? Yes. Look at Gandhi, or who was it? Burned himself alive. Was that Gandhi?
No. It was just a random Buddhist.
All right, random Buddhist burned himself alive.
Cover of Rage Against the Machine.
But he didn't scream though. He didn't flinch. He just sat there, burned himself alive. So, what I would argue is the pain is something he should have felt, because the pain was telling him, "Don't stop it. You're going to die, and people won't remember your name. They'll think you're Gandhi. You'll be that little. This is not worth." You are experiencing this pain. You are psychologically separating yourself from your physical self as you die. I don't know what that does to the afterlife. I don't care. Freaks me out. I don't like anything that guy did. I don't know what he was proving. Look, I'm going to set myself on fire and make it easier. One less person for these people trying to take over and control our lives. I'll just sacrifice mine.
I respect that more than the suicide bomber.
But yeah, you're not killing other people. I don't want anybody to die.
Right.
Killing yourself or killing other people is wrong. It doesn't matter. Being like, I'm going to, like Martin Luther King. He stood up. He knew he would probably be killed for what he did. But he fought until somebody chose to do it. This guy was like, no, killing myself, that's the fucking message. because it means like we need to love ourselves. You're like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Put the fucking gas tank down. Don't set yourself on
Takes
fire.
a lot of mental control.
It's been a lot of years. We still don't really understand what the fuck that message was. What was it?
I think it was an anti-war message.
Yeah, war is bad. Look at me. Here's me killing myself.
Fund Ukraine.
War is bad. Here's me setting myself on fire and killing myself in a very peaceful way. Okay, so war is not that bad. People can die and not feel pain. No, that's not the message. Well, that's what the dummies get. Go get them. I'm just saying, like, there's no central thing. Like Martin Luther King dying for a cause. Well, the cause has a message. Being like, war is bad, I'm going to kill myself. It's like, it didn't lead to anything. It was just you chose to be like, look at me, I'm making a statement. Look at me, my hands are stuck in concrete because cars got too much gas in them. It's like you're not doing it. My point is, it's not doing anything. So when we get to this idea of, I'm getting to the idea of jealousy. The whole thing with jealousy is there are certain things that tell you certain things.
Right. I'm not saying don't trust your
There's reasons why we can overcome stuff. The way you can overcome pain in your mind is with strength. You don't overcome pain with nothing. You have to overcome with something, and it is strength. You have to have some kind of foundation, some kind of strength or something to replace your weakness and say, I'm powered by this. I can't do this because I'm too weak. No, I can do this because I'm going to be that strong. You have to have a strength behind it.
Right.
So that whole thing, he should have felt the pain of the heat because it's a message to the body that something is wrong. And that's my point is there's a lot of things like that where it's like people are like, look, I can ignore this stuff. And it's like, that's impressive. You don't feel the pain of the gasoline and fire. But there's no accomplishment. It's overriding to override, and that's it, just to prove that the mind can do anything. That's great. But if the mind can do anything, and you can override if the mind can do anything to the point of you just sitting there and feeling the flames of fire consume you, why couldn't you have stopped the war?
Right.
That's my thing. So it's just what is the all-encompassing thing? Everything comes to a heart, and that's what we're meant to find. It's what that Meta Perspective podcast.
And that's the idea too. It's like tonight what we're talking about is not the idea of mental control for mental control's sake. It is that most people are a slave to their mind.
You're being lied to by your own thoughts, and you need truth to recorrect you.
You need to gain control over your life, not use your mind to do, like, you can use your mind to do some superhuman shit, and I'm into that. Burning yourself alive is one of those things that's like,
it blows your mind.
Man, that takes some mental control. I'm not going to lie. That is the essence of what we're talking about to an extreme. But that's not, your normal person is not going to get to that level.
It doesn't solve your daily problems.
Right. It doesn't like you use mental control to solve your problems.
I'm rarely on fire.
Overcome adversity and to protect yourself psychologically and, just mentally from feeding into the downward spiral of fear and doubt. So it's like, something like that is extreme, but what we're talking about is a practical application of taking the wheel, gaining control.
For that type of mental control, you could easily say, in the afterlife, how were you able to accomplish setting yourself on fire and not feeling the flames and sitting there in peace? Well, I just pictured myself surrounded by fire, and I understood there was no escape, and the hopelessness allowed me to accept it. That's sad. But then there's also like a proper way to do it. I'm not saying that's how he did it. I'm just saying what he did, I just don't understand as far as
it's all right.
The point is
let's close it up.
The point is you're talking about jealousy, and jealousy to me is the same as any other pain. It's all the same kind of stuff. It's a reaction. If you're sitting there and you say, she just wants to keep hanging out with this guy, and that bothers me and it hurts me, there's a reason. Well, I'm going to tell myself it shouldn't bother me. You're a sucker. There's reasons that certain things happen and are meant to stand out, to be warnings so that you don't inflict more pain. Hey, that stove hurts. I better not climb inside of it. Hey, this girl hurt me. I better not just marry her and not worry about that. Okay, well, okay. Like I don't want you to shoot yourself. So don't, there's ways to avoid what is ultimate pain. And when you ignore the signs and you keep going in, you are going to experience ultimate pain. So jealousy is a two-way street. Again, like you said, you could sit there and meet a girl and she smiles at a friend of yours like, "Hi, it's nice to meet you." She might just be trying to be friendly to your friends because she wants to look like she's cool with your friends. At the same time, I would argue this girl is very attractive. She's talked to all the time. Everybody at work blows her up. She already knows she's likable and everybody tells her she's likable, but you don't know that. But if this girl knows she's overly likable and everybody likes her and she knows what she's doing, then when she's talking to your friend, her excuse to you was, "Well, I'm sorry, it seemed like I was flirting with him. I wanted your friends to like me so that you would like me more." Okay, well, I've never flirted with your friends to get you to like me more. Why do you do it? Because I'm just just simple. I'm just saying.
Apply your argument to being jealous of your coworker. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be
even of my coworker.
Sexual jealousy. But I didn't mean to say sexual jealousy.
But even of my coworker. If I'm at a job, my coworker I feel like is jealous of me, or let's say, I'm jealous of them, their accomplishments, stuff like that. I mean, that's a super easy one because those aren't warning signs more than just.
I'm not talking about warning signs. I'm talking about mental control.
But that's what I'm saying, mental control. If you're jealous and it's coming off as warning signs, that's something you should listen to. If you're jealous and it's coming off as jealousy, you should take that as a sign. Why am I jealous that this person got promoted over me? Because they do something that I don't feel like I can do. If I acknowledge what they do, look at them as weaker, tell myself I could do it better and really hone in on it, respect the art of how they do it and become better than them, by the end of the day, I'm going to actually respect that person more.
Right.
I'm going to have learned from them and I'm going to become better than them. Now, if I hold on to jealousy and just tell myself I'm better than them, I'm already better than them, instead of saying, you know what, I look at myself as I'm better than them in terms of how I handle everything else. But in this one area, they're better than me and they got promoted.
Because
what is
sexual jealousy is different. We could have a whole nother conversation about that.
I got excited for that one. I thought we were about to have another 3 hours, bro. I was
all right, let's wrap it up, man. We're right at almost an hour and a half. Honestly, I feel like just a quick, you're not going to pee, are you? Okay.
I have to. Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up.
I wasn't going to, but I greatly have to, yeah.
So, just as a closing thoughts.
That'd be really bad.
Yeah, so mental control is something that you need to practice. It's something that you need to be
right now.
Aware of.
I love to pee.
It's something that you need to tune in to more Meta Perspective podcast episodes to fully learn. We will be your sifus and your senseis.
It's a class.
And but no, on a real level, we're all just molecules in this world, and somehow our brains and biological purposes have formed a conscious existence, and it's really not as big a deal as you think. You're not going to die, and
we're babies who just learned to walk, and we're just trying to pick you up with us. Let's all walk.
Don't be a slave. Don't be a floating object in the ocean. Be an anchor. Choose where you want to go.
Sink in life.
Yeah, have a propeller.
Just in life, just sink straight to the bottom. That's what he's saying. Right? Be a propeller. Be a propeller.
Be a propeller.
Be a propeller. I like the
an
propeller.
Anchor that was forged into a propeller.
I don't need an anchor. I'm always going forward.
Iron was repurposed.
Yeah.
And attached to a fully powered dual
Monkey D.
motor.
Luffy. We're just going forward for 1,000 episodes.
Fuck sailing. Don't sail.
Nope.
Propel yourself forward.
Yep.
And have the mental control to respect yourself and others, and don't feed into the negative thought reactive patterns that we all have. Learn to ignore those things. Choose what you want to leave. Be the gardener of your mind.
And more importantly, thank you for watching Meta Perspective Podcast. Bye.